I learned to know Alexander Bogotai more than 20 years ago. At that time, we worked together in the Council of European Bishop Conferences for the subject area of environment. This resulted in a long-lasting cooperation and friendship. 10 years ago, we jointly founded the Institute of Religion and Environment at the National University of Uschgorod. It became increasingly clear that ecological and social responsibility are not possible without peace and democracy. I am deeply concerned about the threat of peace and security in Ukraine, which is also a problem for whole Europe. For me, Ukraine belongs to Europe, but not simply in the sense of being bound to the West, but in the sense of being a bridge between West and East. Ultimately, Russia also belongs to Europe in terms of geography and history. Europe can only be strong if we do not allow ourselves to be divided, but seek unity anew. This does not have to mean harmony. It is precisely the diversity of cultural traditions of West and East, as well as of Slavic, Hungarian, Polish and Jewish elements that make up the richness of Ukraine. The special potential of Transcarpathia is that, especially in the 19th century under the Austrian-Hungarian monarchy, it hosted different religions and cultures and derived from them to a special strength of cultural flourishing. This means, for the present, the difference between religions and cultures, as well as national backgrounds, can and should be understood as a chance for cultural richness and an obligation for tolerance. In my opinion, the present political conflict between Russia and Ukraine is about a conflict of identity. Culturally, Ukraine has a hybrid identity. This needs special efforts of dialogue and education for tolerance, so that the diversity can become a chance. Back to the project. Against the background described above, we have dealt with the concept of tolerance in various conferences, workshops, talks, publications, and educational initiatives over the past 3 years. I have been very inspired by the great commitment of colleagues at the National University in Uschgorod. Igor Vehesh, in particular, brings together many debates from the political science perspective. From the beginning also the Center of Social Sciences of the Catholic Church in Germany was part of the project. It is important for civil society is demonstrated not least by the fact that we repeatedly received funding from the German Foreign Office. The second phase of the project of tolerance is focused on the pedagogical implementation of the concept of proactive tolerance, which we developed. I see the relationship of trust that have developed in the last years as a good basis for further cooperation. I am convinced that the current conflicts over tolerance cannot be understood without the factor of religion. Religions have vehemently returned to the public sphere and serve as a medium of demarcating identities, so their role is quite ambivalent. For a long time, we in Europe assumed that religious questions, and thus also question of cultural identity, were private matters. Increasingly, it is becoming clear now that these questions are important for social cohesion and so must be negotiated in public discourses. However, this presupposes that conflicts are dealt with constructively. In part, there is a considerable conflict within the religions, not at least at the All-Ukrainian Council of Religions, vis-à-vis the concept of tolerance. It is suspected of representing a capitulation to the question of truth. However, this is a misunderstanding. Tolerance does not mean blind acceptance of dissenting opinions. Tolerance is a concept of conflict. There is cause for tolerance precisely when different convictions, opinions, experiences, and interests collide. Tolerance means accepting another as a human being, but being able to argue constructively about differences and ultimately recognizing that there is a justified plurality of different opinions. This requires a willingness to engage in dialogue, communication, trust building, and knowledge about different religions and cultures. It needs an appreciation of difference as a chance to learn and to widen one's own horizon. This is what we mean by the concept of proactive tolerance. Christianity can make a significant contribution to this. For its core, it is the belief that God meets in the neighbor. This means respecting him as an image of God and as a moral subject, which with the right to make his own decision of conscience. Christianity is not an abstract truth, but a practice of charity, solidarity, trust building, and tolerance. It also includes the mandate to love one's enemies, which does not mean capitulation to power and violence, but an active strategy of ending hostility. It aims at overcoming thinking in dualistic friend-find or friend-enemy schemes. Christian faith is a mandate to tolerance. There's a close connection between tolerance and democracy. However, we have been observing a global recession of democracy in favor of authoritarian systems, parties and political models for a good 10 years, for example in Hungary, in Russia or in China. At the same time, this has put tolerance on a defensive position. Tolerance and democracy are also acutely endangered in Germany and in many other countries in Europe. We have an erosion of social cohesion and of society. In Germany, there are currently endangered above by all by so-called lateral thinkers, Querdenker, vaccination opponents and corona deniers, and also climate deniers. A complex mixture of very different groups is forming a new kind of social protest. For a good 5 years now, we have seen a strengthening of right-wing populism. The migration debate was a crucial starting point for this. Fear of foreigners threatens to divide society, but ultimately they are above all a projection surface for very different fears in the face of the high complexity of late modern society. Particularly in Eastern Germany, many people feel socially disconnected and marginalized. The political party Alternative für Deutschland, AfD, exploits this and steers up with a wide range of enemy images. Right-wing populism and the appeal of authoritarian political models are on the rise worldwide. This promise to solve the excessive demands of the diverse crisis of contemporary society through a policy of isolation and internal homogenization of society. However, this cannot work. Pluralism is inescapable in a free, human right-based, democratic and open society. We are also experiencing a fragmentation of the public sphere as a result of new social media in digitalization. Many live only in the bubbles of groups with the homogenized opinions. In the digital media, there are manifold hate slogans that undermine the standards of democratic debate and that are sometimes politically intentionally amplified. This is an enormous challenge for democracy. Democracy needs a new forms of discourse in the encounter of different opinions and convictions. That's the main mission of the latest encyclical Fratelli Tutti of Pope Francis. This is a task of education for tolerance. The future of democracy depends on how this succeeds. Education for tolerance is education for democracy.